There was a time when the most powerful weapon wasn't nuclear, it was biological. Not viruses, not chemicals, but something much smaller, peptides. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because when people say there isn't enough research on peptides, what they really mean is there isn't enough English research. Meanwhile, in Russia, this field has been studied for decades. We're not talking about a trend. We're talking about a system that goes back to the 1960s. A system built inside military research, scientific institutes, and long-term human studies, led by figures like Vladimir Kavinson, a scientist who spent decades studying how peptides regulate the body at a cellular level. This wasn't influencer hype. This was structured research, government level, clinical, long-term. And while the West focused on treating disease, Russia focused on a different question. What if you could regulate the body before disease even starts? Because according to people deep in this field, there aren't just a few studies. There are tens of thousands, entire libraries of research that never left the Russian language. And according to some sources, this wasn't just science, it was classified. Cold War-era laboratories, underground research programs, a government obsession with biological superiority, not just weapons, but performance, longevity, recovery, human optimization. Scientists were tasked with solving problems most people never even think about. Radiation damage, accelerated aging, organ degeneration, and that's where something called peptide bioregulators was developed. Tiny compounds, almost invisible, but designed to influence entire systems in the body. So the real question is not, do peptides work? The real question is, why did this stay hidden for so long? What peptides really are? Let's strip away the hype. Peptides are not magic. They're signals, short chains of amino acids, basically smaller versions of proteins. But their power isn't in size, it's in communication. Your entire body runs on signals: when to grow, when to heal, when to sleep, when to age. Peptides are the messengers behind that system. They don't force your body to do something. They tell it what to do, and your body responds. That's the difference. This isn't adding something foreign. This is speaking the language your biology already understands. Most people think optimization is about adding more supplements, more inputs, more stimulation. But peptides work differently. They don't overload the system, they guide it. The Soviet system. Now this is where it gets deeper, because this wasn't random experimentation, it was a system. In the Soviet era, peptide research wasn't just science, it was strategy. Early research was tied to military programs before moving into broader medical use. Because if you can control recovery, fatigue, aging, you control performance. And that's exactly what they were trying to do. Scientists developed what are called organ-specific peptides, meaning different peptides for different parts of the body. Brain-heart immune system, endocrine system, each one designed like a key for a specific lock. These weren't general supplements. They were targeted biological signals. Over time, this led to actual peptide-based treatments being used, not experimental, applied, clinical. Some even used in extreme conditions to help the body recover under stress. That's the level this was operating on. The anti-aging claims. Now this is the part that made people start paying attention, because some of these peptides were linked directly to aging. One of the most talked about is epithalon, a peptide connected to the pineal gland, the same gland responsible for sleep, recovery, and biological rhythm. In Russian studies, they observed effects like improved cellular function, better regulation of biological processes, activation of repair mechanisms, and in some long-term observations, groups using peptide therapy showed significantly lower mortality rates compared to control groups. In animal studies, lifespan increases of 20 to 40% were reported. Think about that, not treating disease, but influencing the process that leads to it. This is where the conversation changes, because now we're not talking about health, we're talking about time. Why you never heard about this? So if this research was so extensive, why is most of the world only hearing about it now? The answer is simpler than people think. It wasn't global. Russian research stayed in Russian. Different language, different systems, different priorities. While the West built a pharmaceutical industry around patents and mass production, Russia focused on regulation, small molecules, targeted effects, long-term protocols, and because of that, much of this stayed isolated, not because it didn't exist, but because it was never marketed, never scaled, never pushed into the global system. Most people think innovation happens in public, but the truth is, the most powerful discoveries are usually made in silence. How this actually works, here's the deeper layer. Peptides don't just boost your body, they influence gene expression. That means they can turn certain processes on or off. Repair inflammation cell regeneration. Your body already has the blueprint. Peptides activate parts of it. It's like unlocking functions that were always there, but inactive. And that's why this space is growing so fast. Because this isn't surface-level optimization, this is internal control, the modern explosion. For decades, this stayed mostly within Russia. Now, it's everywhere. Biohackers, entrepreneurs, athletes, everyone is chasing an edge. Longevity has become a business, and peptides are at the center of it. But what you see online is not the full system. It's fragments, simplified, repackaged, sold, the other side. And this is where you need to think clearly, because not everything in this space is fully understood. Many peptides are still considered research compounds, limited long-term human data, no complete regulatory approval, and that matters. Because once you start interfering with biological signals, you're stepping into a system that's incredibly complex. You're not just optimizing, you're altering. And most people don't fully understand what they're playing with. So now the question becomes, where is the line between improving your biology and overriding it, between discipline and dependency? Because the future is clear. We're moving toward control. Control over performance, control over recovery, control over aging itself. But just because we can, doesn't always mean we should. If you like the video, let me know in the comments.